Morgan Stanley's been the center of global finance for nearly 9 decades. That's worth talking about. It's worth understanding. It's worth learning from. And this is the story of Morgan Stanley.
On September 16, 1935, the investment bank Morgan Stanley was open for business. The firm moved into new offices at number 2 Wall Street.
Each person had his own desk and a wooden chair. If you wanted to get a cushion, you bought it. That was bare bones.
Mr. Morgan's phrase of first-class business in a first-class way was the mantra of the firm.
The first year in business was absolutely astonishing. They handled more than $1 billion in underwriting and captured 1/4 of the business on Wall Street.
After World War II, new capital raised through investment banks fueled the post-war boom.
We did a large debt and equity offering for GM, and they used the proceeds of that to build their next generation of cars and better brakes and more safety features. We did a couple of large financings for IBM as they began to grow their computing business and the future of the technology.
One of the hardest things for corporations is to balance between, on the one hand, being aggressive about opportunities in the future, on the other hand, not removing yourself from the roots that made you who you are today.
Throughout the 70s, Morgan Stanley was the most successful underwriter on Wall Street because of exclusive relationships with a long list of blue-chip clients.
Everybody viewed us as this unchanging, rather stuffy firm, but boy, we were changing like mad.
An explosion of new businesses radically changed the firm.
By the mid-70s, the basic elements of the diversified firm, even of today, were in place.
But there was something missing.
It was very clear the economies of the world were becoming more global.
They knew that some of the economic recipes that work for America would ultimately stretch to other shores.
Why aren't we covering Toyota instead of just General Motors?
We needed $1 billion to do the international expansion that we thought was sort of minimal.
So that led to this decision that we needed to go public.
Morgan Stanley, the prestigious 50-year-old investment banking firm, will go public tomorrow morning.
It was really fast growth. It was exciting. People were moving all over the world.
We became a global firm, a real global firm.
Every company changes. Some do it consciously and some do it without realizing it. But the rest of the world is always changing. So our job as leaders is always to try and anticipate what the world will look like and change in advance of it.
Steve Jobs came in his trademark black turtleneck and said, "Jack, do you remember when they invented the wheel? The personal computer will be, to this century, what the wheel has been to civilization." And at the end of that meeting, we basically had a handshake on doing the initial public offering for Apple Computer.
Apple's just one of many examples of the firm working with entrepreneurs who were really building interesting and unique companies that were pioneers in their industry.
I will never forget sitting in the room with the Equity Capital Commitment Committee to discuss whether we should proceed with the Netscape IPO or not. People were so surprised that we were bringing a business like this.
That was the first of this generation of technology companies that went public where demand was wildly outstripping supply of stock. And people knew this was going to change the world. And off we went.
This morning's business news, Morgan Stanley and Dean Witter Discover have announced a $10 billion deal that would create the world's largest securities firm.
If Morgan Stanley was going to continue to be on the course that it was, it needed to get bigger.
We thought there was a real opportunity to put these two firms together. We did not have retail. And here was a chance to have a huge business.
Virtually everybody accepted that this was a game-changing merger, that we had a competitive advantage now in every business. Our focus was to be the preeminent financial service firm in the world.
Every generation of Morgan Stanley's had its challenges. But the financial crisis was a completely different level. This was a crisis and a challenge which we'd never confronted before.
The collapse of Lehman Brothers set off a wave of panic on Wall Street.
The worst one-day point drop since 9/11.
We began to see very significant draws on our cash.
I mean, on one day alone, we lost $65 billion of cash.
We needed, in a really short period of time, with a lot of pressure, to raise capital.
If we didn't do a deal, it was over. We couldn't stay in business.
So under that pressure point, the real hope that we had was with MUFG.
Morgan Stanley, as early as the 1970s, was investing really extensively in Japan.
We used to have trainee programs. Japanese banks would send trainees into our organization.
I was chosen as the trainee to Morgan Stanley. We really trusted Morgan Stanley, and we knew what they are.
Morgan Stanley announcing that it has signed a letter of intent to form a global banking alliance with Mitsubishi UFJ.
It was very important. Mitsubishi Bank is an enormous institution. They were the leading financial institution in Japan. It just gave the market confidence. Morgan Stanley's not going away. Because of those measures, we got through that period.
And it all goes back to having a one-man office in Tokyo, bringing trainees over here and working with them, and building a relationship and a culture.
Citigroup confirms it will sell a majority stake in its highly rated Smith Barney brokerage unit into a new joint venture to be run by Morgan Stanley.
The Smith Barney deal happened literally right in the midst of the crisis.
At a time when competitors were retreating, we were actually advancing our market share.
The wealth management business gives you stability. And I thought that having that stability attached to the strength of our securities business could be a true knockout combination.
But many on Wall Street weren't buying it.
People were questioning the change in strategy and whether or not we could pull it off.
We just kept saying, this is the right thing for clients, this is the right thing for the changing world, and time will tell.
And so as the progress took hold, I think the belief started to grow.
Morgan Stanley beats expectations with its results, like other financial...
Wealth management figure, that is something that James Gorman has really turned this bank around.
The Morgan Stanley of today is #1 in equity sales and trading, a premier investment banking franchise.
We have this fantastic retail distribution capability. We are now 50% asset management, wealth management, 50% investment bank.
We've taken a fundamentally different approach to sustainability. We really weave that through everything that we do.
It's truly global. You want to do a deal in Thailand, in China, in India, you can get to pretty much anyone, anywhere.
The firm is one of the true leaders in the world in financial services. And I think the future is incredibly bright.
Through 85 years of change, one constant has defined the firm.
Morgan Stanley people believe in the values. We live those values, and that makes you different.
The ultimate test of that was how the firm responded to the COVID crisis. Do the right thing and put your clients first, and we did exactly that.
To me, it is the competitive advantage of Morgan Stanley. To me, it is the singular reason we survived.
It's an authentic place. The people with whom we work, that has been the special sauce that makes us different.
I've been here for 25 years, and I've hired a lot of people, and I've seen a lot of my colleagues leave. Many of them come back because they realize that this place is special.
Partnering, winning together, challenging each other, making each other better at what we do. Any other place would just be a job.
At the end of the day, do you go home and tell your family and friends, I'm proud to work at Morgan Stanley? That's the essence that captures everything. We're proud of our heritage, proud of our commitment to our communities, proud of the way we as a firm have come together to make Morgan Stanley the place it is today.